In fact, the designers employed 5 mental health consultants to render the story, resulting in a humane and nuanced take on mental illness that may well be the most realistic depiction of schizophrenia and psychosis ever presented in video game form. Eternal Darkness, eat your heart out. Not to mention, it made for an intense, moody action-adventure game that earned the praise of critics and players alike. So just in time for Senua's saga, here's the story of Hellblade so far. Senua's lot is a hard one. She struggles with thoughts and behaviors that today would be diagnosable and treatable by a psychiatrist or counselor. Things like the Furies, the tangible voices in her head that follow her and pester her with bullying comments throughout the game. But as someone living in the 8th century, Senua's psychoses have inevitably become blended with her people's religions, rituals, and superstitions. She's deeply misunderstood by those around her, branded as cursed, a haver of second sight, and a mystic to be feared. She is Celtic, a Pict, and a warrior hailing from Orkney. But as her story begins, Senua is very far from home indeed. She's come to Helheim, the Norse underworld, to fight for the lost soul of her lover Dillion. Dillion, horribly slaughtered by raiding Norsemen, was the sole figure in her life that showed her only understanding and refused to reflect her self-loathing back to her. Flashbacks to his rational, even way of helping Senua persevere through emotional episodes are some of the only bright spots in the game's narrative, and it explains her absolutely unwavering need to recapture his soul from Hela, goddess of the realm of the dead, even if it costs her her own. Such is Senua's sacrifice. Although the title has a second, even darker meaning, since it was upon returning home to find Dillion blood-eagled by ravaging Vikings as a sacrifice to their own gods, that Senua lost everything, inherited her quest, and became convinced that Dillion's soul was being held for eternal ransom in their strange underworld Helheim, lorded over by a very real foreign goddess. With Dillion's head in a bag at her side, and occasionally speaking to him, her own Furies, even the player themselves, Senua navigates Helheim, battling otherworldly creatures and frequently her own darkness and delusions. Instead of a linear story, we experience the universe through Senua's unique eyes, as visions, memories, and reality flow into one another in a disorienting shuffle. From the vantage of a modern-day clinician, Senua could simply be hiking through the wilderness, talking to herself, seeing things that aren't there, and struggling with her own inner demons. But to Senua, and to us, she is plumbing the depths of hell to battle darkness incarnate and slay the gods of her enemies. Her unique sight allows her to dispel illusions, unseal runic doors, even fix fallen bridges, all the while fighting the darkness that symbolizes her worst self, and which creeps further up her arm towards her head each time she falls in battle. Her Virgil-like guide through Helheim is the spirit of a man named Druth, who lives on either as memories of the stories he told her, a literal ghost, or both, depending on your interpretation. Druth regales us with epic Norse myths like Balder and the Mistletoe, although a decidedly different Balder than Kratos encountered.
He was beautiful, good and wise. He gave fair judgments.
Sigurd's slaying of Fafnir the dragon, the prophecy of Ragnarok, when the universe will burn and the gods themselves pass away. And of course, the legend of the Hellblade itself, Grimir, a blade capable of slaying the gods. Senua's sinuous path into Helheim leads her first through the domains of the fire giant Surt and Master of Illusions, Valravn. Senua dispatches them both in order to open Helheim's gate, but is struck down by Hela almost immediately upon their first encounter, left swordless and, eventually, Dillionless, as his head tumbles into a pit and disappears far below. Aided by her voices and visions, Senua comes upon the Hellblade embedded in the heart of a tree, and Druth's legends compel her to complete 3 heroic trials in order to reforge it. At the same time, Senua's memories and delusions gradually invite us into her tragic backstory. Her mother Galena was similarly touched by second sight, or suffered from hereditary psychoses, and Senua's devout and truly terrifying father Zindel eventually declared Galena cursed by the gods and burned her alive. Witnessing the murder at age 5 and being abused by her father and treated as an outcast by the townspeople only deepened Senua's darkness. Her sometimes erratic behavior caused the whole community to view her as bad luck, and when a plague swept through the village, her father was more than willing to blame her and convince others to do the same. That was when Senua decided to flee to the woods, a self-imposed one-year exile in a valiant attempt to wrestle with her furies in solitude, hopefully returning to home and her love Dillion with the darkness at bay. But it was upon her return from seclusion that she found Dillion dead, and during this time that she first crossed paths with Druth, an escaped Norseman slave who'd used his knowledge and ability to translate between Norse and Celt to lead the Vikings to villages to plunder under penalty of torture. Likewise, scarred by his own guilt, Druth takes a liking to Senua, and we can assume that the many stories she carries in her head are a gift of their time together. But not all voices are a gift. Terrorized by her own self-loathing, the stigma her people assigned her, the torture of her mother, the trauma of an abusive father, and the constant confusion sown by her own inner furies, Senua slogs on through Helheim, descending into lakes of blood, navigating pitch-black caverns, cutting down dozens of enemies, and ultimately killing the nameless beast that guards hell and looks kind of like the Scare Bear from Annihilation. Senua finally comes face to burned mom face with Hela, ready to battle, die, even trade her own soul if it will free Dillion's, Hellblade in hand and fully ready to rock. If you unlocked the game's bonus cutscene, she also learned that her monstrous father Zindel secretly sold out the picked people, trading safe passage among the Norsemen for the location of their village. It was this betrayal, and Druth's torture-induced help, that truly killed Dillion, just as he murdered her mother, just as he tortured Senua all her life by blaming the fruits of his own evil on her. Zindel basically sucks, you guys. A horde of the dead rise up, swarming Senua, and a hopeless battle ensues that the player literally cannot win. You and Senua and Druth and the Furies are all one, and you hack and slash, and Hela's also kind of your mom, who Senua has to learn to forgive in order to forgive herself, and you suddenly realize you are literally playing a metaphor for confronting your own inner demons and the arduous process of healing from trauma, but like as a mythical zombie sword fight, and this game kicks ass! And then you die. As promised, the poison that's been seeping up Senua's arm and representing her mental anguish reaches her head just as she prepares to draw her final breath. But instead of dying, Senua realizes a moment of loss, of letting go, which is itself a kind of death. She admits to herself that Dillion is truly gone and beyond her reach. If Zindel was wrong to blame her, to hate her, and to call her cursed by the gods, if his gods were false, then so are their hells, and so is her bargain with the Lord of Hell. She surrenders her quest, and in that moment, she and Hela reverse roles. She drops Dillion's head into the water and emerges with a new sense of clarity from her ordeal. Dillion is dead, but their love was real, and Senua's mind may fight her and may be fraught with perils, but it is no curse. She knows now that she was blessed with a warrior's strength, a hero's heart, and the sight and determination to topple gods and banish shadows. Rising from the ground, symbolically resurrecting from the dead, Senua strikes a very temporary truce with the voices in her head and bids the player goodbye, while a lingering fury assures us that this is just the beginning. For more news and updates on Hellblade 2 Senua's Saga, keep it tuned to IGN.
Follow us. We have another story to tell.
My name is Raz, and today is my first official day on the job. We're on a mission.
Rasputin?
I'm on him. Looking for me? No. No. Mia, the mission is falling apart. We've lost control of Lobato.
I put the old egg in the box in the basket. No, I won't tell. I won't tell anyone. I promise. No, please.